Lou once said, quote, "I learned at Yale how much can be gained from a close interaction of students and historians. He himself taught as a has been a huge focus of Lou's amazing life well lived. He truly believes that scholars and teachers should be honored for the immense influence they have on students." Lou has done so much on so many levels to encourage interest in and the study of American history. And he himself is a brilliant scholar and writer, and an author of many books, two of which sit on my bedside table, Lincoln by Littles and The American Founders, excuse me. And I read them often when I can't sleep at night. I wake up and read one of those. He is currently working on not one, but two important volumes. Churchill, Roosevelt and Company, Studies in Character and Statecraft, and the second volume will be Churchill and Lincoln at War, Studies in Character and Statecraft. Lou, we can't wait. We're honored and thrilled that you and Louise came all the way from Pennsylvania to be with us tonight. This popular series wouldn't even exist without you, so thank you from all of us. Now, Dr. Ellis, when I was told that you had accepted Doug Bradburn's invitation, I have to tell you my gay heart skipped a beat. Honestly, I was so excited, because I well remember when you received the coveted Pulitzer Prize for Founding Brothers. Family members and my good friends, Gilbert King, who wrote Devil in the Grove, was asked about receiving the Pulitzer Prize. He said, "That was never the intent." He said, "When you're writing, you work, you read, you work, you read, and so on. You're not thinking about the Pulitzer Prize." One, he said he never forgot how he heard. It was a text and it said, "Dude, Pulitzer." He said, "When you're writing, you work, you read, you work, you read, and so on. You're not thinking about the Pulitzer Prize." One, he said he never forgot how he heard. It was a text and it said, "Dude, Pulitzer." So later, I hope you'll tell us how you got yours. Dr. Ellis said a great day for him was to get up in the morning, read the paper, have 3 cups of coffee, work for 3 hours at his desk, and then get his act together. Teach a class, go to gym, come back and walk the dogs, and then after dinner in the evening, go back and read what he wrote in the morning. He said, quote, "Writing is solitary and teaching is social. Teaching forces you to talk things out. Writing allows you to digest those conversations and perhaps put them in a more concise form." Dr. Ellis writes longhand. He said, "I'm a pre-computer person and I never made the transition." For him, the creative process is sitting and digesting what he's thinking about. The relationship between his hand, his wrist, and the flow of ideas from his head is almost physical. Typing is too fast. When he was a young man, he didn't have his own bedroom, and he had 2 noisy sisters and a mother who yelled a lot. He said, "That's how I learned to focus." And he said, "I'm blissful when I can focus uninterrupted." I share that with you. The only thing is it's a little hard on spouses. He received his BA from William & Mary, his MA and PhD from Yale, and he has taught at fine institutions on the East Coast, Mount Holyoke, West Point, and Amherst, to name a few. And now we all remember Abraham Lincoln saying, 407 years ago, our father brought forth to this continent a new nation. Wait a minute. That isn't exactly accurate, according to the quartet. With the Articles of Confederation in place, the founders achieved independence to become another country like Europe, meaning 13 separate countries. The quartet, Washington, Madison, Hamilton, and Jay, were responsible for making the transition from a confederation to a nation. The founders, in fact, are what Joe Ellis writes about. In fact, he lives and breathes the founders. Friends, the quartet is fascinating. I loved it, and I know you will too. For all of us who consider George Washington indispensable, it was comforting to read on pages 103 and 4 that Madison, Hamilton, and Jay also believed that, quote, Washington possessed the potential to transform the improbable into the inevitable. We all know that this author clearly and eloquently explains how the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights came to be and how America was born. Quote, it could be considered the most consequential act of political leadership in American history. I was captivated by an almost heart and mouth suspense, even though I knew the ending. The quartet explains it all. It's beautiful and compelling. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Dr. Joseph Ellis.
Wow, okay, that's a lot to live up to. I'm not going to talk about the quartet. We talked a lot about that recently on the book tour. I'm going to talk about young Washington tonight. And the argument that I'm going to try to make to you is that the interior of Washington's personality took shape in the interior of North America, the transmontane region between the Alleghenies and the Ohio River, when he's a young man. That's what I'm going to do. So now you know that, you don't have to listen to the rest. I've got two questions to ask you to begin. First, in my judgment, the written word is meant to be read, and the spoken word is meant to be heard, and that therefore it would be inappropriate for me to read to you. And therefore, I'm not going to read to you. And therefore, I have not written this lecture out. And therefore, you are going to listen to me talk to you and periodically ask you questions, and I want to know if that is okay. Thank God. The second question, how many of you out there are parents, have children of any age? How many of you have had the following experience as parents? Up until a certain time, 4, 5, 6, you can do no wrong. Indeed, you are God or goddess, omniscient, the source of all. And then they cross a line. And whether that line is psychological, biological, genetic, whatever, and when they cross that line, you can do no right. Indeed, in purely Freudian terms, they want to kill you. That pattern is an accurate description of the attitude towards the founders over the years, and towards Washington in particular. A swoonish swing between idolization and evisceration. The greatest leader in American history and the deadest, whitest male of all time. Tonight, I would like to suggest we need to move beyond such childish and juvenile things, and to come to terms with Washington, the man, in all his imperfections and flaws. Indeed, if he really were perfect, why in heaven's name would we study him, since we have nothing to learn? because none of us is perfect. There was a book written a few years, 10 years ago now. Who was it by? Henry Lyoncheck. It's about Washington and slavery. It's the most comprehensive study. I don't agree with it completely at all, or lots of it. But Lyoncheck's title is Imperfect God. What a stupid title. I mean, if you think he's God, of course he's going to be imperfect. Or if you begin with the assumption that he is divine, then any human failure at all is, well, not to be expected. So, we're in a new era. The new thing, and to go see the Hamilton play, to see this played out, the new thing is flawed founders. Their flaws are what make them interesting. And that's true of Washington as well. He is still, so say I, the foundingest father of them all. Nobody's talking about taking his picture off the $1 bill. Nobody's talking about tearing down the Washington Monument. It's safe to get to know him as he really was. That said, it is not an easy task. Let's see if this works. No, that's the wrong one. Yes, thank you. That works. That is a portrait of Washington from 1795 by Gilbert Stuart. Stuart believes it's the best portrait he ever did of Washington. And it is the iconic Washington. Majestic, aloof, godlike. It's what the artist thought we wanted to see. Here is what the artist said, Gilbert Stuart, when he was painting that picture. There were features in his face totally different from what I had observed in any other human being. The sockets of his eyes, for instance, were larger than what I had ever met before, and the upper part of his nose broader. All his features were indicative of the strongest passions. Had he been born in the forests, he would have been the fiercest man among the savages. That is not what he painted. It's what he saw, but it is not what he painted. We needed heroes, we needed gods, and he was prepared, and he made a fortune doing this, to give us precisely that kind of imagery. The man in the moon. He's right up there all the time. But think about this. You go to the mall, you go to the Jefferson, to the Lincoln, to the Martin Luther King Memorial, and there are words. I have a dream. 77. We believe these truths to be self-evident. What are the words on the Washington Monument? There are none. The only words are inside the graffiti that's been scrawled there by tourists climbing up the stairs. He wrote probably Martha, because especially during the war when he was away, although she joined him for most all the winter encampments. He ordered that they be burned upon his death, and they all were safely free. Just think, if we had the same correspondence between Martha and George that we have between John and Abigail, our whole view of him would be different. And he didn't want us to know that. Why did he burn him? None of your business. As a historian, I thought, oh, he's got this diary. Let's look at the day he retires from public life. 6 May 1797. He's stepping down from the presidency after the second term, and what's on his mind as he leaves? What kind of thoughts does he have? 6 March 1797, a day like all days, 41 degrees Fahrenheit. That's it. There's even disagreement about how tall he was. Mount Vernon says he was 6'2", and there's a letter from John Mercer in 1758, a really good letter. I won't read it because we don't have the time, but it describes him as 6'2" and 175 pounds, a majestic rider, a great dancer, great horseman. Chernow, in his biography, and Ron Chernow's a terrific biographer. God, I'm jealous of him for the play on Hamilton. He thinks he was 6 feet tall. Why? Because he wrote 3 letters to his tailor in London, and he always said, "I'm 6 feet tall and proportionally made." And Chernow says, "Well, who's going to lie to his tailor?" Well, I think that's the reason his clothes never fit him. His military uniforms fit him, because they were made here. I think he was over 6'3". They measured him for his casket, and he was 6'3½". And why in heaven's name they don't think that's official? Well, because people at Mount Vernon back then, this is how many years ago? Before the current regime is in power, to be sure, that they bent his toes